All right, today we're diving into a really big idea for how we could restructure, well, everything. It comes from a source called Zyro Hive, and they're proposing a whole new foundation for society. They call it the Civilizational Ground Layer.
Okay, so let's just start with this quote, because it really sets the stage. The argument here is pretty stark. The powerful tools we're building, things like AGI, aren't just going to be helpful. They're going to take all the existing flaws in our systems and crank them up to a catastrophic level.
And that right there is the core problem this whole blueprint is trying to fix. We've got this massive mismatch, right? We're building these incredible futuristic technologies, but we're still trying to manage them with rules and systems from a totally different era.
I mean, look at this. This slide just lays it out perfectly. On one hand, you've got these civilization-level tools, AGI, quantum computing, even climate engineering. And on the other hand, how are we trying to manage them? With paper contracts, with meetings, with simple promises. The whole point is that these old tools they're completely broken for the job we're asking them to do now.
So just how broken are we talking? Well, get this. The claim is that our current systems leak an unbelievable 94% of their intended value. That means for every dollar of effort, only 6 cents actually lands where it's supposed to. The rest? It just evaporates because of things like mistrust, bad communication, and all the money we spend just making sure people do what they said they'd do. It's like this massive coordination tax that we're all paying without even realizing it.
Okay, so what's the usual answer we hear for problems like this? Disruption, right? Just break the old thing and build something new. But this blueprint makes a really interesting point. Our obsession with disruption has a huge hidden cost that we never really talk about. See, when we disrupt a system, we're not just swapping out old tech for new tech, we're actually destroying something that's almost impossible to replace. They call it ontological intelligence. And it's not data or code, it's the deep, lived-in, kind of intuitive knowledge of how things really work. It's the stuff that's not written down anywhere. A great example is a company like UPS. Its real value isn't just the brown trucks and the warehouses, it's the generations of knowledge about logistics, the little tricks, the relationships, the muscle memory of the whole system. When a disruptor comes in and breaks that all apart, that deep intelligence is just gone forever.
So if disruption is actually the problem, not the solution, then what's the alternative? Well, this is where they introduce a pretty radical new idea. Instead of disruption, they talk about a shift to something called completion. And it's a totally different mindset. Instead of smashing what's there to extract some value, completion is all about evolving what already exists. It's about healing the broken parts, keeping that precious ontological intelligence, and weaving everything into a healthier system, one that actually deals with its own problems instead of dumping them on everyone else.
And here's the brutal math of our current world. For every single dollar of effort we put in, we get back just 36 cents of real value. So where does the other 64 cents go? It gets externalized. That's a fancy way of saying we push it off the balance sheet and it becomes debt for the planet, for society, for our kids.
But completion totally changes that math. And this is where you start to see the potential for a completely different kind of economy. The whole promise here is that we can fundamentally rewrite that broken equation.
And the scale of the proposed improvement is just wild. We're not talking about a 10% or 20% gain here. The claim is a 64x improvement. I mean, how is that even possible?
Well, the idea is that in this new model, that value isn't lost anymore. It's not pushed off as debt, it's captured, and it's recirculated in these, think of them as regenerative circuits. Because you're dealing with all those costs up front, every single dollar you put in works so much harder. 64 times harder, apparently. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually build it? What does it look like in practice? Let's take a look at the blueprint for this so-called civilizational ground layer. At the heart of it is this new coordination stack. It's basically a 5-part system designed to replace our old, leaky, analog way of doing things. You start with smart contracts to handle the agreements automatically. Then you've got proofs to verify that people are actually doing what they promised. The PCE coordinates the work itself, and something called Carly acts as a learning system, so the whole thing gets smarter over time. And wrapping it all up is this IACG SCR engine, which is basically a trust machine, using game theory to make sure everyone can rely on each other. And this whole tech stack is run by 4 new kinds of organizations. They're like the new institutions for this ground layer, and they each have a really clear job. One maps out how things currently work, Another one architects the new rules of the game. A third one actually operates these new systems. And the fourth, and this is really important, is all about bringing everyone, all the stakeholders, into the process.
And that last one, the Pattern Contributor Entity, or PCE, this is the real game changer. This is the piece that gives everyone a seat at the table. Workers, communities, even the environment itself. They get a real voice, a real role, and, get this, actual equity. You're not just a data point to be mined for value anymore. You're a sovereign owner in the system.
So you can see this whole thing isn't just some abstract theory. It's laid out as a real, actionable plan, and it ends with a direct invitation to 3 key groups that are needed to actually build this thing.
First up, it's a call to the leaders of the big companies we have today. And the message is simple. You don't have to be disrupted and destroyed. There's another path. You can evolve, preserve all that incredible intelligence you've built, and become a key part of this new, healing layer for civilization.
Next, there's an invitation for the innovators and the startups. It's offering them a different way to play the game. Instead of building in opposition, trying to tear things down, why not build in harmony? Create value by completing what's missing, by healing and integrating, not by destroying. And finally, it speaks directly to the stewards of place, the people who manage regions, communities, indigenous lands. It's a call for them to anchor their future in the truth and the deep intelligence they already hold, rather than importing some outside model of disruption. And that really brings us to the final point. This whole idea isn't being pitched as some kind of utopia. It's being framed as a deeply practical, even necessary, response to the storms we see gathering on the horizon. Which leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. The storm is here. Are we ready to build the ground that can actually hold?